So I'm standing in my grandmother's kitchen in Gadsden, Alabama, and she's frying okra in a black cast iron skillet. And she's telling me how she grows the okra.
Well, first place, you've got to wait till the winter is over before you plant it in the spring. And then you wait and you wait for it to come up. And it's very slow taking off. I fertilize it a time or two and go out and look at it. Sometimes the rabbits eat it up.
Her name is Velma Louina Holiday Latham, and she'll be 92 this year. She's been frying okra since she was 9 years old.
And then when it gets on up there, the one begins to bear. You go and pick it, cut it, we call it, bring it in and slice it to fry it. Cut it in little rounds. I roll mine in flour, and this morning I put a little bit of meal with it. Some people use all-together meal.
I call her Mama. We all do. And when we get together for holidays, she does the majority of the cooking.
And everybody swears the way she fixes it is best.
Do you feel that way too?
I don't claim anything I fix is the best. Some of it I see at our big get-togethers. I call it burned up. But, oh, it gets eaten.
I'm Tanner Latham, and this is Authentic South. It's a podcast where I explore Southern culture. I'm looking at food and art and music and storytelling and the landscape itself. And the show's going to feature lots of quirky characters and big personalities. So what are we doing in my mama's kitchen? Well, I believe that fried okra symbolizes the ever-evolving culture and definition of the South. Stay with me. Okra is one of the most quintessentially Southern foods, and yet it's a plant that has an origin thousands of miles from here. Depending on which scholars you go with, okra comes from South Asia or Ethiopia or West Africa. And it was introduced to the South by slaves, probably sometime in the 1700s. So is okra really Southern? Of course it is. But like most Southern things, it's complicated. Now, this is not what my mama is thinking about when she's frying okra. But what I think about is how okra connects her, and all of us really, to so many varied cultures in the South, and even around the world. In today's episode, I'm going to take a look at what is Southern, what it means to be Southern. We've been in Alabama, we're going to go to Mississippi and Atlanta. We'll even travel all the way to South Korea. You'll see what I mean by that. But first, I decided that I needed to get an expert overview on the South and on what is Southern. So I went academic.
I'm Ted Owenby. At the University of Mississippi. Right now I'm the director of the Center for the Study of Southern Culture, and I have a joint appointment in History and Southern Studies at the University of Mississippi.
I met Ted at his house in Oxford, Mississippi. It's red brick, 1920s craftsman style. And it sits about a block from St. Peter's Cemetery, which is where the Southern icon William Faulkner is buried. Would this be the epicenter of the South, Oxford, Mississippi? I feel like Oxford might perceive itself that way.
No. we live in an age that defies centers, that everything is interconnected, and so Oxford, Mississippi would be one of the centers, and teaching at the Center for the Study of Southern Culture, then we'd be at the center of one of the centers, and that's even more awkward, kind of a bullseye, which is not a terrible place to be sometimes.
So I know what you're thinking. Ted went meta pretty quickly on us, which is expected because he's a professor. He wears standard issue tweed jackets. He has brown, curly, kind of disheveled hair and a bushy mustache. He sort of reminds me of a modern Mark Twain. At any rate, to be fair, I knew that there would be an academic tone to this conversation, that we would probably stay in the theoretical versus the literal. I knew that my questions about the South would really spawn more questions. And they did. Do you feel then that, is there a South?
Here's a quick answer to the question, is there a South? For a scholar, this is a great time to be studying Southern topics. It's not a good time to be drawing conclusions about the South, that we don't have a real clear set of questions that a previous generation of scholars had. That a previous generation of scholars would say, well, the South is agricultural poverty, it's single party politics, it's racial segregation instituted through the laws and supported by the laws. Maybe it's a fairly narrow range of evangelical churches numerically dominating the region. Once those things change, an older generation would say, then there was a South and there's not a South anymore, or maybe there's a new South or modern South or modernizing South. What I tell my students, I'm serious about it, is don't let any old person, don't let any scholar, don't let any critic say, hey friends, this is what the South is. You figure that out yourself. And we see that in different ways.
What is the state of the American South right now?
I can't answer, sorry. Complicated, some things working in very positive directions, some things working in the wrong and negative directions, and lots of things swirling around still to be determined. That's no answer at all. But
Does that keep you in a job?
The fact that so many people are interested in those things swirling around is part of why my faculty colleagues, staff colleagues, and students, why we're all involved.
After spending time with Ted, I decided to talk to another person I respected as a Southern expert. Now, as full disclosure, this guy hired me to my first real job, and I worked for him as a travel writer and editor at Southern Living magazine for almost 10 years.
Talk like you would talk normally.
Well, that's about the way I talk normally,
Just,
you know.
just making sure.
I have a pretty characteristic voice that people recognize. I walked into a meeting this afternoon, and the guy says, well, I can't miss the voice, so I'm not sure what that means, but it means that you certainly know when I'm coming.
And I know that you know that most of the folks up there had their own impersonation of John
absolutely.
Floyd too. So John Floyd began his career at Southern Living in 1977. He became the editor-in-chief in 1989, and he served in that role for almost 20 years. He was very successful. In that time, the magazine's circulation increased by 500,000 people.
When I became editor in the late 80s, there's no question that the South had started trying to forget its sordid past, and my job was not to talk about the sordid past. My job, I thought, was to encourage you guys to write about the positive future. Not so much disrespecting the past, but not honoring the past as something sacrosanct. And what you really do when you're changing, when a culture's going through a change, and culture changes very slowly. It's not a fast thing. And you're supposed to be the purveyor of the good news, not the bad news. Many times history is not a good partner for you. Have you ever thought about that?
Do you think you were successful at presenting a genuine South?
I doubt that. I don't know what a genuine South is. What's a genuine South today? I doubt it.
Really?
I don't know that there's a genuine South. I think I presented a South for a selected audience that was middle class.
Yeah.
That was looking to enjoy and live life better. Mm-hmm. But no. Mm-hmm. You know, I have no qualms. I think I'm not even, you know.
Right.
Because just think about it.
Wasn't
You're
the
from
mission.
North Alabama.
Right.
I'm from Central Alabama.
Right.
The difference in our backgrounds, the genuine South of our backgrounds, just because the way the Alabama was settled, is radically different. we want to use good words. We want to use genuine. We want to use include. I mean, it just you write about a certain place at a certain time, and that composite is what you hope gives you a picture or a snapshot of who you're writing to.
So after this whole conversation, how would you define the South, or how would you define Southern?
Well, I do think it is sort of more of a state of mind than it is a state of where you are. I would just define the South as a dynamic region of the United States that maybe it's for the first time realized it doesn't have to fight to be the dynamic region of the United States that it is. You know, we've been for 100 plus years telling everybody how good we are. I don't think we really have to do that anymore. And I think there's a new birth of caring. I really think we're close to a real new birth of people caring more for people caring more for the land, people caring more for what's right to do. I think we're on the tipping point of that. I'm not sure we're there yet. But it would be a very interesting piece to ask how the South is going to tip next.
So that brings us to a barbecue joint on the north side of Atlanta. It's a place called Heirloom Market. It's hugged up next to a convenience store, and there's some giant barbecue smokers outside. It's always packed at lunch, and there's never a place to park. It's perfect. Classic Southern barbecue place. Except it's not really classic. It's this amazing fusion between the two owners.
My name is Cody Taylor. I'm the chef owner at Heirloom Market Barbecue.
My name is Jian Lee, and I'm also chef and owner here.
So Cody has Texas roots, and that's his barbecue palate. And Jian is from South Korea. She was a very famous pop singer there. I'm not making this up. She was the Britney Spears of South Korea for a while. But she decided to follow her passion for food, so she went to culinary school in Atlanta and met Cody in a restaurant. They started dating and eventually started the Heirloom Market.
We use Korean ingredients, especially the seasonings. It's our soul food. Like gochujang, it's a Korean red pepper paste. That's our staple. We use a lot. It's for soup to marinate or sauce. We make side dishes with out of it, and the miso, Korean miso too.
So now we inject our Texas-style brisket with miso soup, and we put.
Sounds crazy, but it works.
It acts as a meat tenderizer, and also adds a little bit of salt and sweetness to the center of the brisket, where a lot of times you don't get the flavor. And then we also put the Korean miso and the collard greens. So after you finish with the collard greens, it's almost like a miso soup you get in an Asian restaurant, you know what I mean? But it's still different base seasoning group. And some of the fried items that we do, I think is pretty neat. Like even when you just get onion rings, okra, fried green tomatoes, we use Korean tempura. You know, every region in Asia has a different style of tempura, so we do Korean tempura. So the onion rings will be our normal straight tempura, but then if we do okra or fried green tomatoes, we add Aunt Jemima, cornmeal. You know what I mean? It's like you get Aunt Jemima, cornmeal, and Korean tempura mix.
Tempura mix.
Yeah.
When I started this business with Cody, I learned so much because I never cooked American barbecue before. I love American barbecue. This is my favorite American food. And also Korean barbecue is my favorite Korean food too. And I'm learning so much about this Southern food is so soulful. To me, I'm a Southern girl from Korea.
fried okra. So what is the South? What is Southern? Well, it's all these things. The South is this gigantic umbrella, and we all fit under it. If you're like my mama, you're born Southern. If you're like Jian Lee, or even okra for that matter, you become Southern. And I believe that is fantastic and fascinating. I'd like to thank my guests today, Chefs Cody Taylor and Jian Lee from the Heirloom Market in Atlanta, John Floyd, who's the former editor of Southern Living, and Ted Owenby, the director of the Center for the Study of Southern Culture at Ole Miss. The music today was written and performed by Chris Hoke and Brett Eastep, musicians in Birmingham, Alabama. And of course, I've got to thank my mama, Velma Latham.
What do you think it means to be Southern?
Through most of my life, to be Southern meant very calm, easygoing type people, which is not true anymore. I mean, we're all about the same now. Think almost alike.
Until we go south again, thanks for listening.